You're listening to the Access Success Podcast, produced by Access U, a division of Access Advertising and Public Relations. Hey, let's do something big. I'm your host, Rachel Schneider. Welcome to the Access Success Podcast, where we highlight important topics focused on education in every form it takes. Today, we're talking about media relations, specifically in crisis communication situations, especially if you have an investigative reporter coming to your organization and asking some questions, especially if you're a university. Listen to this. This past November, the Washington Post announced that longtime Chronicle of Higher Education reporter Jack Stripling would be joining their education team. In a press release, they released the following quote. At the Post, Jack, a self-described FOIA freak, will continue to help us hold universities accountable. He will seek scoops about campuses and administrators across the country. He will dig deep into their biggest decisions and the impact those have on a generation of students. The investigative portion is part of an expansion of the higher education team, coming at a time of increased scrutiny on both academics and the public and private money flowing into colleges, end quote, by WashPost PR. So this move to expand an investigative focus on universities, when many journalists, by the way, are being laid off or leaving the industry entirely, highlights a very interesting move by WashPost. This investment strategy from bigger name shops like the Post should be taken very seriously by institutions, especially if you need to upgrade your PR game. And I will say, there is a misconception that the media is always out to get companies and organizations, but that's not necessarily true, not in the way that you may think. The difference between actual journalism and tabloids is that news outlets are not constantly looking for embarrassing gotcha moments or honest mistakes to twist into scandals. They're not all TMZ. Journalists, especially journalists like Jack Stripling, who's now with the Post, hope to give people who are not in power a voice, shedding light on injustices, especially ones that were attempted to be covered up. If a newsroom gets a tip from somebody about a story, it's typically from a stakeholder in that organization who does not like the way an issue was handled. Ultimately, they really just didn't like the way the issue was communicated to them or lack thereof. So they want other people to know about it. They want other people to be angry about it and to side with them. More than anything, it's because they just want to be heard and feel as though that they haven't. If there's transparency from the beginning and an organization has systems in place to provide an equitable and just response to a problem with visible, documented steps taken to solve that problem, then there's going to be much less venom even if a negative story does come out. This is another reason universities should have a media relations team that is actively working with local reporters, making things like media kits and information and statements and interviews available whenever they're able to. That transparency, that communication, that accessibility is going to help so much. Colleges and universities must look at how they can improve their own checks and balances system internally. Transparency with their communities is paramount for internal and external stakeholders so that no one gets blindsided when things like this come out. This communication effort, leaving a paper trail, can be the backbone of your messaging should a crisis surface because you can point to that process. Consistently informing people who care about your institution's issues then rolls out the carpet for others who may be able to offer their own thoughts and suggestions, feeling like they're part of the conversation. And again, showing that your organization cares about your community being heard. This also promotes diversity of thought and inclusive decision-making when everyone feels they have a seat at the table and knows that they do. You cannot stop every crisis or investigative story from happening. That's the truth. But having a responsive public relations team can help your leadership get out in front of an issue, communicating and responding appropriately to your stakeholders and to the media and ultimately the public. You can learn more if you'd like to on the basics of crisis communication and talking to the media in times of crisis on our blog at accessu.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Access Success Podcast, produced by Access U, a division of Access Advertising and Public Relations. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with what the world of education needs to hear, at Access U Agency, and connect with us at accessu.com. Let's do something big.